Tigray. And this crisis affects me, my family and my friends very personally. But as the Director General of WHO, I have a duty to protect and promote health wherever it's under threat. And there is nowhere on earth where the health of millions of people is more under threat than in Tigray. Just as we continue to call on Russia to make peace in Ukraine, so we continue to call on Ethiopia and Eritrea to end the blockade, the siege, and allow safe access for humanitarian supplies and workers to save lives. This is the only solution in Ukraine, Yemen, Afghanistan, and Ethiopia. Christian, back to you.
And we'll start with Corinne Gretler from Bloomberg. Corinne, please unmute yourself.
First, on the Medicago, you know that the Medicago has applied for an emergency use listing by WHO, but due to its connections, it's owned by tobacco, by Philip Morris International, partially owned by Philip Morris International. So the process is put on hold because it's well known that WHO and UN has a very strict policy regarding the engagement with tobacco and arms industry. So the process is put on hold. It's very likely that it won't be accepted for the emergency use listing by WHO. On the Sputnik, yes, we were supposed to go to do inspections in Russia starting on the 7th of March, and these inspections were postponed for a later date. So the assessment has been, the assessment in local inspections have been affected because of the situation, an uneven situation regarding flights options, and also the financial issues related to support with credit cards and some more operational issues. And this is being discussed with the Russian applicants, and new dates will be set as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for considering my question. My question is cDNA microarray technology useful to get ideal vaccine characteristic for COVID-19 disease? Thank you.
So the question of the composition of vaccines and the technology to be able to determine that composition is still, really an open matter for research and evaluation of vaccines. As you know, we have a number of different platforms of vaccines. Some of them are based on the virus itself. Some of them are based on either RNA or DNA sequences of components of the virus. So there's no one technology that is sort of the ideal technology or the critical way forward. I think the important part of this is an area of science that has been evolving very, very quickly over the past year, and importantly contributing not only to the development of very effective COVID vaccines, but also deploying that technology towards other vaccines. So cDNA microarray technology is not something specific that we're focused on as that particular technology. I really want to emphasize the range of options on vaccines, which have all been those ones that have achieved WHO, EUL, have all delivered on the protection against especially the severe end of the disease spectrum. Thank you.
I'm just wondering what is causing the rise in infections again? Are we about to face a new wave?
What is causing the rise in? We got it. Okay, thank you very much. And Dr. Maria van Kerkhove, please.
It's a combination of factors for which we're seeing an increase in case detections again around the world. In the last week, we saw an 8% increase in cases detected, with more than 11 million cases reported to WHO. And this is despite a significant reduction in testing that's occurring worldwide. So it's a combination of factors that is resulting in this increase. First is we still have Omicron, which is transmitting at a very intense level around the world. We have sublineages of Omicron, BA.1 and BA.2. BA.2 is more transmissible than BA.1 even. And this is the most transmissible variant we have seen of the SARS-CoV-2 virus to date. in the context of lifting of public health and social measures, lifting of the use of masks, lifting of physical distancing, lifting of restrictions of limiting people's movement, this will provide the virus an opportunity to spread. We have also incomplete vaccination coverage in many parts of the world, and in particular among people who are at risk of developing severe disease. And we have huge amounts of misinformation that's out there. The misinformation that Omicron is mild, misinformation that the pandemic is over, misinformation that this is the last variant that we will have to deal with. This is really causing a lot of confusion that's out there. So we are seeing increases in case detection around the world for a number of reasons. These are the same factors that have been driving transmission of this virus since the beginning of the pandemic. We completely understand that the world needs to move on from COVID-19, wants to move on from COVID-19, but this virus spreads very efficiently between people. And if we don't have the right interventions in place, the virus will take opportunities to continue to spread. And the more the virus spreads, the more opportunities it has to change. So it's a number of factors. The good news is that we have the tools that can reduce the spread. We know that masking works. We know that physical distancing works. We know that vaccination saves lives. And so we need to continue, as the DG said in his speech just now, and as the Director General has been saying since the beginning of this pandemic, it's about a layered approach and using these tools most effectively and making sure that we not only save lives with vaccination, earlier clinical care, good testing, but we also take measures to reduce the risk. So we are concerned that we're starting to see an increase in case detection again. And again, it's within our control. We do have some power over being able to limit the spread, and we really need to remain vigilant and do what we can, where we can, to reduce the spread.
Just maybe add to that point, because I think when we look at these data and deep into them, and we look at the hospitalizations and deaths, again, the overwhelming majority of people who are getting very sick and dying are vulnerable individuals, older individuals, people with underlying conditions who have not been vaccinated or have not received a full course of effective vaccines. And we again need to restate the importance in every country. This is not just a North-South issue. In every single country needs to look again at vaccination levels in its most vulnerable, whether it's using booster policies or not, and ensure at the very minimum that every individual who is vulnerable has 2 doses of effective vaccine, and in situations where boosters are available, and policy is in place as well. Because I think we'll see this virus is still, as Maria said, very fit. It's still moving around quite easily. And in the context of waning immunity and the fact that vaccines don't work perfectly against infection.
I'd like to know if you could give any more detail about the 43 attacks on healthcare in Ukraine, specifically what kind of establishments you're talking about when you talk about healthcare, where have most of the attacks taken place? Are you able to give any geographic information? And do you also have any information on how many healthcare workers in Ukraine have been injured or even killed in the same time period? Thank you.
This is, and the DG referred to this, we're only very short part into this year, and we have never seen, globally, never seen this rate of attacks on healthcare. Health is becoming a target in these situations. It's becoming part of the strategy and tactics of war. It is entirely unacceptable. It is against international humanitarian law, and in fact, under international humanitarian law, conflicting parties are actually instructed to specifically take measures to avoid attacking or inadvertently destroying or hurting health workers or health facilities. They don't bear a responsibility not just to not attack. They actually bear a responsibility to ensure that they don't attack, to identify those facilities, to deconflict those facilities, and to ensure that they do not, as part of their prosecution of war, attack those facilities. So it is not only against international humanitarian law to carry out attacks like this, it is actually in the responsibility of all parties, and I might say all parties in conflict, to do so. We are, as the DG again has said, working very hard with many partners to get emergency medical teams on the ground. But how how can we put emergency medical teams on the ground if the very facilities that they may want to go and support are going to be attacked and going to be bombed and going to suffer catastrophic damage? This crisis is reaching a point where the health system in Ukraine is teetering on the brink. It is doing exceptionally well. It needs to be supported. It needs to be shored up. It needs to be given the basic tools to save lives. Part of that is deploying teams in to support that. But how can you do that in all conscience if the very infrastructure that those people will go in to support is being under direct attack? And I don't know if Flavio Salio is back from leading our EMT initiatives in Ukraine, and maybe Flavio would like to comment on this. But this issue is more important than bricks and mortar. This isn't just about the destruction of buildings. This is about the destruction of hope. This is about taking away the very thing that gives people the reason to live. The fact that their families can be taken care of, that they can be cured if they're sick, that they can be treated if they're injured. This is the most basic of human rights, and it has been directly denied to people, and we are then in a position where we can't send assistance to those people because the very act of attacking those facilities or not taking care to avoid those facilities means we can't send the appropriate help when it's needed. Flavio.
Thanks, Dr. Wright. Yes, it's becoming for sure a challenge to ensure that the right level of support reach facilities. We have been in touch with the hospital requesting support, in particular specialized care, where basically external medical team can bring the added value and support the local health system. The challenges remain obviously safety of the staff, safety as well of the patients themselves. They become today the challenging point at this stage. There is as well a significant component that include evacuation of patients from the areas in which are targeted, patients that obviously suffer from chronic condition and thus require as well support. So there is a ongoing evaluation of the system that can facilitate medical evacuation towards the borders. Then obviously across facilities in Europe that will accommodate them themselves. As a last point, I think the augmenting the capacity through temporary facility could be other options, but challenged by the element that Dr. Ryan described in terms of the conflictions as well, and ensuring that if we bring such kind of capacity, is recognized by obviously the parties to the conflict. Thanks.
So to all members of the press who joined us today, and see you next time.
Bahagian Siasatan dan Penguatkuasaan Trafik BSPT Ampang Jaya telah menjalankan operasi penguatkuasaan melalui sekatan jalan raya di Jalan Pandan Industri dan operasi halangan lalu lintas sekitar kawasan pentadbiran IPD Ampang. Keseluruhan sebanyak 151 keping saman dikeluarkan dalam operasi sekatan jalan raya atas pelbagai kesalahan trafik dan 157 keping saman dikeluarkan atas kesalahan halangan lalu lintas. BSPT Ampang Jaya akan meneruskan operasi penguatkuasaan setiap masa demi memastikan pengguna kenderaan mematuhi peraturan dan undang-undang lalu lintas yang telah ditetapkan. Markas Pemerintahan Kapal Selam MPKS menganjurkan program derma darah yang diadakan di Dewan Sepanggar Pangkalan TLDM Kota Kinabalu, Sabah bersempena Hari Ulang Tahun TLDM ke-88 dengan kerjasama bersama Markas Pemerintahan Armada Timur, Hospital Angkatan Tentera Wilayah Kota Kinabalu dan Hospital Queen Elizabeth II. Inisiatif ini sekaligus dapat menangani kekurangan bekalan darah di Hospital Queen Elizabeth II yang disebabkan oleh jumlah penderma darah yang berkurangan akibat penularan wabak COVID-19. Acara bermula 9 pagi hingga 12 tengah hari dengan mematuhi garis panduan COVID-19 yang dihadiri seramai 122 orang penderma. Demi memastikan pengusaha dan pelanggan mematuhi prosedur operasi standard SOP yang telah dikeluarkan oleh Majlis Keselamatan Negara, Polis Diraja Malaysia PDRM Daerah Kelang Selatan melalui pasukan penguatkuasaan menjalankan pemantauan di semua kawasan tumpuan ramai di sekitar kawasan Kelang Selatan. Usaha ini dijalankan bagi mengekang penularan wabak COVID-19 dalam masyarakat. Orang awam juga diingatkan agar sentiasa mematuhi SOP yang telah ditetapkan seperti pemakaian topeng muka dan penjarakan fizikal 1 meter terutama apabila berada di kawasan tumpuan ramai.
Jadi kali ini saya nak tengok hanya pastikan kita ada winning formula yang benar-benar cakap pada hati kecil kita yakin. Jangan kerana kita ada apa tu orang kata beberapa pandangan yang bersifat sentrik peribadi. Ya. Saya tahu sekarang ini terus terang saya cakap dia ada dua jalur pemikiran. Orang yang berada luar kerajaan merasakan cepat-cepat masuk pilihan raya dan kalau ditakdirkan menang, orang luar kerajaan dapat menjadi kerajaan. Ya. Sebelah pihak lagi pula yang dah duduk dalam kerajaan, kalau boleh nak selesaikan kerja yang ada, nak meneruskan dulu mandat.
Jelajah aspirasi keluarga Malaysia diteruskan lagi ke utara tanah air. Julung kali ini ke negeri Perlis. Terdapat kaunter perkhidmatan pelbagai kementerian dan agensi terus kepada rakyat. Perolehi manfaat antaranya Karnival Kerjaya Jamin Kerja Keluarga Malaysia, Jualan Keluarga Malaysia dan pelbagai gerai usahawan. Bakat mai gamai-gamai orang Perlis 25 hingga 27 Mac ini dari pukul 9 pagi hingga 8 malam di Kompleks Sukan Tuanku Said Putra Kanga Perlis. Zahirkan impian, ayo bangkit bersama aspirasi keluarga Malaysia.
Keluarga Malaysia.
city of smiles and sunshine greets a visiting French couple who have just arrived at Kuala Lumpur, capital city of Malaya. Not unlike new visitors to Malaya, they find their way to the Government Tourist Information Centre. For Mr. and Mrs. Jean Dupont, who have travelled extensively in the West, this is their first trip to the East, and the first time they will tour Malaya. Oriental magic awaits them. Kuala Lumpur is the capital of the Federation of Malaya. Situated in Middle Malaya, as you can see on this map, Kuala Lumpur is the hub of all air, road and railways. The clock tower of the Secretariat is the symbol of our vigorous city. The railway station and its administrative building are built in the enduring Moorish style. Malaya is a land of contrasts. Facing familiar monuments, you will see new commercial and residential blocks, the outward appearance of the spirit of growth of Malayan cosmopolitan life. The meeting point of two rivers marks where the nation's capital started from a tiny trading post a century ago. Here stands the Jame' Mosque, the heart of the Muslim faith and of the Malay people, the largest community in Malaya. Every type of architecture can be found in Kuala Lumpur. East and West have met and still intermingle. Above the hum of city traffic, you will find Buddhist and Hindu temples only a stone's throw from the mundane world. The main market is the biggest and busiest in Malaya. And in the city's Chinatown, a ceaseless bustle, a fanfare of noise, a riot of colors and every description of demand and supply. Prolific, teeming is life in the shopping center of the Chinese community. Most visitors to Kuala Lumpur have been intrigued by the little activities in the modern metropolis. Durians are a Malayan favorite. They are not so popular with Westerners. Fortune telling, in which a bird is the agent. Here in Kuala Lumpur is the National Art Gallery, displaying some of the most challenging works by Malayans. Many of their themes are taken from everyday life, but their styles are varied and vigorous, the artists comprehending the past, the present, and the perennial. A little way from the city is the country's cultural center, located in a quiet and lovely valley. The Malayan University is young, bold, and expanding. Its buildings are new and ultra-modern, and its staff and students devoted and energetic. Young Malayans come to seek knowledge and truth, ever mindful of the needs and aspirations of their progressive nation. And of course, anyone can relax in the beauty and serenity of the city's lake gardens. At one time, there was only a couple of squatter farms. Then men made the lake, laid out the gardens, and turned the valley into a fine park. Templar Park, just 14 miles from the city. It's a large tract of virgin jungle land, 4,000 acres. Here the water is clear and the air invigorating. Here, colorful wild flora are neighbors of shining cascades and murmuring streams. Klang Gates, 9 miles from the city, is worth a visit. It is a spectacular reservoir. Its clean, cool water provides a popular swimming pool. Up a flight of 272 man-made steps to nature's wonderland, the fabulous Batu Caves of Kuala Lumpur. This natural cathedral is the shrine of Hindu devotees. The ceiling vaults 400 feet high, spiked with stalactites. We are proud to say modern Kuala Lumpur reflects the national heritage. To the south are the cities of Johor Bahru, Melaka and Seremban. At the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula lies Johor, one of the largest, richest and oldest of the Malayan states. Johor Bahru is the capital. The rail and road causeway is the link for Johor with the island city of Singapore. Southern gateway to Malaya, Johor Bahru is a flourishing trade center. Its landmark is the massive government building. Built like a Mughal bastion in the ancient land, it dominates the island of Singapore and the seas around. The magnificent Abu Bakar Mosque, fashioned by a Malay architect, supervised by a Malay engineer, and constructed by a host of Malay artisans. The General Hospital of Johor Bahru is one of the biggest and best equipped medical institutions in Malaya. Within the royal town is the Istana Garden Zoo, a great attraction. Countless visitors have flocked there to make the acquaintance of Mr. Chimp. The zoo was started in 1927 by the late Sultan Ibrahim, a keen big game hunter in his youth. With lions from abroad, there are tigers, leopards, panthers and wildcats brought from the Malayan wilderness. The animals feature regularly at annual fairs in the country. The Royal Menagerie is well known throughout Southeast Asia. Travelers passing through Singapore have always been drawn to the spot. Melaka is another of our famous cities. Porta de Santiago, old gateway to a blazing past, to a great Malay Sultanate, and to an eventful colony of Portuguese, Dutch and British successively. Here the Portuguese had raised in 1511 their mightiest fortress in the Orient, the Formosa, its huge granite walls shielding a castle, 2 palaces and 5 churches. On St. Paul's Hill are the ruins of one of these churches, the oldest European building in Southeast Asia. St. Francis Xavier was interred here more than 400 years ago. A marble statue of the apostle looks at the city below. And below is Christ Church, a masterpiece of Dutch architecture in the 18th century. Yet more of the past is still alive today. The rich culture and customs of the early European settlers, sustained by their proud descendants. Their festivals revive all the old pageantry and piety. The Portuguese descendants still cling to their colorful heritage. The state of Negeri Sembilan was founded by enterprising immigrants from Sumatra in the 16th century. Negri has a distinctive character. Its customs are unique in the country. Seremban, the state capital, owed its origin to tin, but now rubber is its mainstay. At the entrance to the city are the charming lake gardens set in a pleasant valley. Close by is probably one of the most unusual museums in the world, for it had been an ancient palace built by the ruler for his daughter as a wedding present. 90 feet high, the Istana Lama is a unique Malay building erected on single beams from floor to roof, and not a single nail used. A remarkable example of traditional Minangkabau architecture, the carved panels revealing some of the finest Malay wood carving in Malaya. Near the mouth of the Linggi River is an antique shrine, the tomb of Sheikh Ahmad Majnun, a religious teacher who was killed in a rebellion near the site in 1467. A sandstone pillar with Arabic and Jawi inscriptions commemorates his death. There are also strange granite monoliths considered to be of pre-Islamic origin and mysterious till now. In the suburbs, the Minangkabau architecture prevails. Its main feature, the tilting roof. Mainly agricultural, Negri is drained by several rivers. The simple water wheel still works alongside modern methods. Rice planting is the main occupation in the countryside. After the harvest, the villagers celebrate, making music known as the tumbok klang by pounding wooden instruments on fresh paddy. Negri retains the old Minangkabau law to this day, by which woman holds an unrivaled status in society. 20 miles west of Seremban is Port Dickson, the playground of central Malaya. Its palm-fringed coast, holiday bungalows and hotels, gardens with drinks and meals served under swaying casuarinas make it Malaya's year-round vacation resort for fun and recreation. Miles of golden beaches and the warm, sun-drenched sea. Each city in Malaya is a facet of the land of contrasts. To the north of Kuala Lumpur are Perak and Penang. There is a ring of limestone cave temples around Ipoh, the tin center of the world. The biggest of them is just outside the city, the Sampo Tong Temple, hollowed out of rocks by believers. For many years, is an inspiration to visitors who find the subduing peace and tranquility to be inviolable. Is the royal capital of Perak. The splendid Istana Iskandaria is the seat of the Sultan. 3 rulers have lived here. A modern building, but it has distinct oriental features, domes shaped like onions and slim turrets. There is a soft air of romance around this palace, high on a hill on the banks of the Perak River. Near the palace is the Ubudia Mosque, designed in magnificent Moorish manner. Across the Perak River spans the Iskandar Bridge, one of the longest bridges in Malaya, the link for the tin-rich districts of Larut and Kinta. Overlooking the leisurely water traffic, the bridge joins the busy highway between Ipoh and Kuala Kangsar. Perak is called the Silver State. Her wealth comes not from silver, but from tin. Taiping was formerly a tin center. The Taiping lakes are the loveliest in the entire country. They reflect a peace in no way like their troubled history. For around the area, rival Chinese miners had once fought bitter feuds for the wealth of the alluvial earth. The name Taiping means great peace. This, you will agree, is in harmony with the pervading beauty of the place. The enchanting island city of Penang has been named Pearl of the Orient, Jewel of the East. It is served by an efficient ferry service across 2 miles of water from the mainland. Once Britain's oldest settlement in the Far East, Penang was ceded to Malaya in the independence year of 1957. Today it is still a free port, Malaya's chief port, where ships of many nations bring their cargoes and their passengers. Penang was founded in 1786. The Georgian period has left its imprint on the city, giving its name Georgetown and influencing its architecture. The islanders like to think they have the only station in the world without a train. The trains come no further than the mainland opposite. On top of the railway building is its stately clock tower, lofty symbol of the fascinating island. The devotion of the Chinese Buddhists has created the Temple of Supreme Bliss, the largest temple and monastery in Malaya, its air imbued with years of incense and piety. Beside it towers the majestic pagoda of the 10,000 Buddhas. Sacred Buddha images are gathered from many surrounding lands. There are also 2 of the most formidable gods believed to be protectors of mankind against evil. In the temple courtyard is a tortoise pond. Tortoises symbolize longevity. Feed them well and you too may enjoy long life. The funicular railway climbs steeply to the top of Penang Hill, almost 3,000 feet above the sea. It's, however, a brief journey. Thousands of visitors come every year. Some stay overnight in several of the cozy bungalows there. Others spend just an afternoon after hiking up by a winding jungle path to enjoy the bracing air and the inspiring scenery. All have been charmed by the panoramic views from thick woodlands to the shining city below, across the sparkling sea to the majestic mountain ranges on the mainland. Below, the sea, the glittering waters of the Malacca Straits and the Indian Ocean. A hilarious playground, resplendent in the sun. The coast of Penang are most picturesque. Many miles of curving capes and burnished beaches. Penang is a Malayan island paradise. Mr. and Mrs. Jean Dupont will now begin their personal tour of the west coast cities of Malaya.
Bahagian Siasatan dan Penguatkuasaan Trafik BSPT Ampang Jaya telah menjalankan operasi penguatkuasaan melalui sekatan jalan raya di Jalan Pandan Industri dan operasi halangan lalu lintas sekitar kawasan pentadbiran IPD Ampang. Keseluruhan sebanyak 151 keping saman dikeluarkan dalam operasi sekatan jalan raya atas pelbagai kesalahan trafik dan 157 keping saman dikeluarkan atas kesalahan halangan lalu lintas. BSPT Ampang Jaya akan meneruskan operasi penguatkuasaan setiap masa demi memastikan pengguna kenderaan mematuhi peraturan dan undang-undang lalu lintas yang telah ditetapkan. Markas Pemerintahan Kapal Selam MPKS menganjurkan program derma darah yang diadakan di Dewan Sepanggar Pangkalan TLDM Kota Kinabalu, Sabah bersempena Hari Ulang Tahun TLDM ke-88 dengan kerjasama bersama Markas Pemerintahan Armada Timur, Hospital Angkatan Tentera Wilayah Kota Kinabalu dan Hospital Queen Elizabeth II. Inisiatif ini sekaligus dapat menangani kekurangan bekalan darah di Hospital Queen Elizabeth II yang disebabkan oleh jumlah penderma darah yang berkurangan akibat penularan wabak COVID-19. Acara bermula 9 pagi hingga 12.30 hari dengan mematuhi garis panduan COVID-19 yang dihadiri seramai 122 orang penderma. Demi memastikan pengusaha dan pelanggan mematuhi prosedur operasi standard SOP yang telah dikeluarkan oleh Majlis Keselamatan Negara, Polis Diraja Malaysia PDRM Daerah Kelang Selatan melalui pasukan penguatkuasaan menjalankan pemantauan di semua kawasan tumpuan ramai di sekitar kawasan Kelang Selatan. Usaha ini dijalankan bagi mengekang penularan wabak COVID-19 dalam masyarakat. Orang awam juga diingatkan agar sentiasa mematuhi SOP yang telah ditetapkan seperti pemakaian topeng muka dan penjarakan fizikal 1 meter terutama apabila berada di kawasan tumpuan ramai.
Saya tercari-cari tempat letak kereta. Puas cari tak jumpa-jumpa. Saya tengok jam. Alamak, dah lambat. Barang bini tak beli lagi. Lepas tu, cantik. Ada kosong. Saya keluar, saya kunci pintu, terus masuk pasar raya. Saya pergi rak cari sarden, santan, buah. Yang lain tak sempat, lalu saya keluar. Buka pintu kereta, pasang tali pinggang keledar, betulkan cermin belakang, baru nak start enjin. Sekali nampak abang. Saya buka pintu, alamak. Macam itulah cerita saya. Saya minta maaf ya.
Sekarang awak dengar cerita saya pula. Tadi saya pun dari dalam. Lepas tu saya dapat mesej mak saya tenat. Saya pun nak cepat. Saya tak boleh masuk kereta. Macam mana saya nak masuk? Kereta awak halang pintu saya.
Saya minta maaf sekali lagi ya.
Kenapa? Perkara beginilah yang menyebabkan kami OKU tidak berupaya.
Pusat Kehidupan Berdikari atau Independent Living Centre ILC menyediakan perkhidmatan sokongan untuk membantu OKU agar dapat hidup berdikari di dalam masyarakat. ILC membantu OKU menerusi perkhidmatan pembantu peribadi seperti membantu OKU mengurus diri, membawa OKU ke hospital atau pasaraya. Jom kita. Jom. Perkhidmatan kaunseling rakan pembimbing oleh OKU kepada OKU seperti memberikan suntikan motivasi, memupuk keyakinan diri dan perkongsian masalah. Tidak lupa juga program Hidup Berdikari yang bertujuan untuk memberi semangat kepada OKU dan keluarga OKU untuk berdikari dan menyesuaikan diri di dalam masyarakat. OKU yang ingin mendapatkan perkhidmatan ILC boleh menghubungi ILC berkenaan. Sila layari laman web www.jkm.gov.my.
Dos penggalak atau booster dose adalah dos tambahan yang diberikan kepada individu yang telah lengkap menerima vaksin COVID-19. Ianya bertujuan untuk memastikan imuniti yang telah dibentuk selepas menerima dos lengkap dapat dikekalkan memberi perlindungan optima pada risiko jangkitan COVID-19. Dos penggalak diberikan kepada semua individu berumur 18 tahun dan ke atas dengan keutamaan temujanji diberikan kepada petugas barisan hadapan, penghuni dan petugas di Pusat Jagaan Kesihatan Jangka Panjang, individu dengan komorbiditi, wanita hamil dan keperluan ke luar negara. Individu yang layak akan dimaklumkan melalui aplikasi MySejahtera atau khidmat pesanan ringkas kepada nombor telefon yang berdaftar. Vaksin dos penggalak diberikan di fasiliti pengawal perubatan swasta. Ia juga diberikan di klinik kesihatan dan hospital kerajaan yang terpilih serta melalui aktiviti jangkau luar. Jom ambil dos penggalak atau booster dose. Lindung diri, lindung semua.
Terdapat 7 kategori OKU dan semestinya keperluan mereka berbeza. Saksikan program khas Persekitaran dan Keperluan OKU bermula 31 Mac ini hanya di Bernama TV.
Hi and welcome to The Nation. My name is Gerard Ratnam. Now, diversity is critical in tech and enables companies to create better and safer products that take everyone into consideration, not just one section of society. Now, a 2020 report from McKinsey found that diverse companies perform better, they hire better talent, have more engaged employees, and retain workers better than companies that do not focus on diversity and inclusion. Despite this, women remain widely underrepresented in IT roles. A theme for International Women's Day this year is gender equality and for a sustainable tomorrow. Joining me on set is Rita Irina Abdul Wahab, Vice President, Public Affairs and Communications from Huawei. Rita, thank you very much for taking time off to be with us. It's good to have you here. on this amazing celebration on the world stage. Everyone talks about International Women's Day. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the tech industry, okay, and the masculinity within tech industry. Why aren't there more women in tech, or how would you approximate this as to why there aren't many women in tech?
Thanks, Gerard, for having me here today, and it's just a pleasure to speaking about this topic. So, tech industry, as I see with a lot of other industries in Malaysia, like the manufacturing, automotive, definitely seen masculine by many, right? And of course, one of the things that I think would be one of the discriminatory facts is the work culture, and also the requirements that comes with the tech industry. But also with women coming on board, there is always this motherhood penalty that comes with it. I mean, you like it or not, whether you're married or we have children, it comes with it. And it ties as well to the job requirements and the salaries that you take in. There are studies that's been done where the male counterparts are actually earning more, and also the policies that surrounds the industry. I think I was speaking with you before we started, and I said that I also wish that the policies that surrounds the industry, the ecosystem, is more supportive towards the women folk. Right. Support that comes in the form of childcare services, it needs to come in more strongly. Support as well in terms of understanding the women in the industry, because we do feel quite a lot of pressure. I think a lot of women take on the role of childcare more than men. Right. And the pressures in and out of organizations.
But this is something that we already see happening in the world. You know, if you look at Scandinavia and how they're moving forward with, you know, what you mentioned or what you say is a penalty to women, these roles are changing within, you know, countries like Finland, Norway, Sweden. You know, men are taking on stronger roles with looking after kids. Should we be looking at these countries, looking at their models and saying, hey, you know, we want to bring it back, but bespoke it for ourselves or customize it for Malaysia?
Definitely. I think the modern society has started to do that, taking more roles, more responsibilities in upbringing of the family. I think when the government started to push more women to come on board and get more responsibilities, especially senior management and participation, those need to also come with the different layers of the pipeline, right? So in preparing for the next generation, I think those policies need also to come into play. And studying, of course, the good examples from the Scandinavian would definitely do us good. Yeah.
Now, if you look at the ecosystem, okay, we're saying, it's fair, we're saying that there are more men than women in IT roles. But then if you dial back a little bit, the bigger question is, okay, so there's more men in IT roles. So the next excuse is, what's the problem? You know, like men learn coding, women aren't going out and learning coding, and that's like the cornerstone of getting into IT roles. Or is there a different way of approaching this?
Okay, so in the IT world, it's not just necessarily about telecommunications or information systems, science, maths, computer science, and I think in the near future, everything is going to be about digital, right? So if you look at the studies definitely done by Coursera, even by the graduates as well.
Coursera, amazing platform, huh?
Correct.
Yeah.
And even from Mohi itself, you can see that the interest in all the STEM subjects and the courses are increasing, both for the male and the female. But as you go along the way, right, when they graduate, but in the workforce, their numbers dwindle down, the girls especially. And why is that so? So total workforce in Malaysia, I think, is about 11 odd million, but more than half are women. But surprisingly, the makeup for a digital economy is only 35% are women. So there is that gap that you need to address. So for the men, are you saying, oh, they take up this coding and stuff, women don't? I think that's not entirely accurate. Yep. I think, to me, it's about when you start, everybody start at the same level playing field, same platform. But as you go along the way in the career, some do drop out, and there has been studies and why they drop out. Like I mentioned just now, there's more requirements for the women to stay home and look after children, look after the elderly. But as we go along, the society have become more modern, take on more responsibilities. But it's just that I think we need to do a little bit more in providing more sustainable and supportive ecosystem to make sure that we get to that 30% participation of women. Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that, you know, women at a very, very young age, you see young girls getting out of college, or when they get into college, they want to get into social sciences, they want to get into journalism. I guess the thing that doesn't stand out at that point, maybe later in life it does, but at that point, what doesn't stand out now is making the subject or IT a little bit more sexy. So when women look at it, they'll say, hey, you know, this is something I want to take. You know, you say journalism and they think about, wow, me ending up on TV, me going to a war-torn zone, speaking to people there. That sounds sexy to a young girl. But as she furthers herself in life, she knows, you know, there's just so much here in the IT world and I need to jump on board. So it's time for me to try to make that leap. What about women who've already come out into the working world and wanting to get on board into the world of IT?
Interestingly, for example, if I would take myself in the tech world, I didn't start